We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bellet. Welcome back to the BraveCo Podcast, men. Guys, we are in the middle of our addiction series. As y'all know, this has been a really incredible series. I've super enjoyed it. The guest that I have today is a man that I really admire, and I think that you are too, after you hear his story, what he went through and how he overcame. I first saw Nate Larkin on a video called "I Am Second," and it was, I think I was just talking to Nate. He said in 2008 he made that video, and man, I'll tell you, when I saw it, I was so deeply impacted by his story, by his authenticity, the incredible lows that Nate went through, and the way that he rebuilt his life. And so I am so excited to have Nate Larkin on here. And for those of you that don't know Nate, I'm gonna read his bio. Um, Nate Larkin is the founder of the Samson Society and the author of Samson and the Pirate Monks, which that is a cool name, man. I'm gonna ask you a bit about that. Calling men to authentic brotherhood, a graduate of St. Lawrence University and Princeton Theological Seminary. Nate spent years battling hidden struggle with porn and sex addiction before finally finding freedom in a 12-step recovery program in 1998, which is the year I graduated high school. In 2004, Nate and a few of his recovery friends started the Samson Society, a mutual aid society for Christian men seeking honesty, connection, and support. What began as a small gathering has since grown into a global movement, helping thousands of men around the world with more than 600 local groups and thousands of men attending daily online meetings at the samsonsociety.com. Nate, thank you so much for coming on here, man. Again, this is an honor. When you accepted our podcast invitation, I was just so excited because really you're a forerunner and of men who have owned up to where they're at and taken tons of responsibility, turned your life around, and then are helping other men. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's such a privilege to be with you. I was thrilled to get the invitation.
Well, um, I'd love to hear your story. I've watched it, but for you, I just love for men to hear your story. What happened to you? Where did you first find pornography? You know, maybe how you grew up
Yeah.
and then where you found pornography, and then kind of take us from there.
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, I grew up in church. My dad was a preacher, Pentecostal preacher, and I was destined for the ministry from an early age. I'm the oldest of 10 kids.
Wow.
I'm naturally good at church, had a talent for it, and I was a good kid, except when I wasn't. And when I wasn't, the penalties were severe. So
Wow.
I learned early on to hide.
Like spankings,
We never talked about I'm sorry?
like being spanked and things like that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, it's spanked, and, that's a nice word for it. It got pretty vicious at some point. Um, I don't hold a grudge any longer,
Yeah.
and the bruises have faded, so, um, I, we never talked about sex at church or home, so that in itself sent a very powerful message. This is not something we can talk about,
Hmm.
and nobody warned me that porn even existed, till I ran into it, shortly after my mother had died. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And saw a Playboy magazine. So of course, I was in a very vulnerable emotional state and on the brink of puberty. So it was a perfect recipe, not just for, the natural intrigue, but it became a fascination. It impacted me deeply. And of course, I felt a lot of guilt and shame. I knew it was wrong, didn't know why it was wrong. Uh, Today, I mean, we can talk for hours about what's bad about porn.
Yeah.
I just felt guilty for having seen it and ashamed of having liked it.
Nate.
So I did what guilt does. I lied, and I did what shame does. I
Yeah.
hid very, very successfully. So I had a private battle against porn all through adolescence while I was building a reputation as the Christian kid and the budding Christian leader, the golden boy in our non-denominational denomination on my way into ministry. And when I got to college, I decided to stop feeling guilty.
Mhm.
Decided it was time to join the modern world and I needed sex education. I thought porn was a good place to get it. Um, Actually rationalized my porn use during my college years as
Wow.
preparation for marriage, unaware that I was already poisoning.
Wow.
But I was sure that when I met the right girl and got married, that my interest in porn would evaporate. What I didn't understand was that by this time, porn and masturbation had become my default distress management strategy.
Mm.
So whenever I was in emotional distress of any kind, that's what I went to for soothing, self-regulation. Well, I did meet the right girl, great girl, fell deeply in love, got married the day I graduated from college.
Wow.
But as it turns out, marriage is stressful. So it wasn't too long after the honeymoon that the problem reappeared. That was very discouraging. But what I eventually told myself was, Nate, porn may not be the best thing in the world, but it's better than adultery. In fact, you're probably being pretty considerate, not burdening Allie with all your sexual needs.
Mm.
She just doesn't need to know how considerate you're being.
Wow.
What I didn't understand was that now porn was grooming me, programming, setting me up for the next step. And that process really accelerated during my seminary years. Ironically, it was on a seminary sponsored trip into New York City that I saw hardcore porn for the first time.
Wow.
The kind of stuff any unsupervised 4-year-old can find on the internet today. I saw for the first time as a married man in a peep show booth in Times Square with my wife there. We were there on a seminary sponsored trip intended to show us how women are exploited by the sex business. In that moment, I was disgusted by it, but also fascinated. There was something about I didn't understand at that point how much more powerful those moving images are
Mm.
than the still images that I'd been using up until that point, because film is immersive,
Yeah.
reaches a part of the brain that can't distinguish between real experience and virtual experience. And I was hooked right away. Um, Within days, I was driving down into Trenton, New Jersey, searching for a source for my new drug because, baby, I had found my drug. Never been a drinker, never been a drugger. I don't know if you know this, but porn actually stimulates the same pleasure centers in the brain that cocaine does.
Yeah.
Over time, changes the brain in the same way that cocaine does. We can actually see it now on brain scan.
It was fascinating. It's completely
Yeah.
fascinating.
Uh, Allie saw my behavior change, and I began to drift away from her emotionally because I'm bonding with phantoms. She didn't know what was wrong. She thought, something was obviously wrong. She thought it must be her.
Mhm.
That sounded like a good explanation to me. I went with that. Um, of course, felt guilty and yes, battled it. And, I had these seasons of success, but it was a secret fight. There's no way I could tell anybody what I was doing. And I was very careful. I was never caught.
Nate, were you
So
trying
fast
to
forward
quit?
another.
Were you trying to
What's
quit?
that?
Were you trying to stop porn? Or were you just trying to,
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah. I felt terribly guilty.
got it.
But it was like my car had a will of its own.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing: we learn addictive behavior. We find a workaround, some kind of a workaround when we can't handle whatever trauma has overwhelmed us, right?
Mm.
Or we can't deal with that emotion that the experience or the memory provokes. So we find a workaround,
Yeah.
something that medicates it for a moment. And our brain is a very, very efficient machine. If any kind of repetitive task, it will quite quickly automate. So we
Yes.
don't even have to think about it anymore.
Yes.
All it takes is the right stimulus. The bell goes off. It's the tone of the voice. It's the time of day,
Yep.
and the impulse strikes. So
Yep.
My car drove itself every day. But I would find, I was always searching for, the silver bullet, the magic ritual, the right sequence of thoughts, the right prayers, the right sequence of behaviors that would make it possible for me to finally overcome this crazy compulsion on my own. And now and again, I would think I'd found it because I'd be able to stop for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward 6 years, it's during one of those periods when I'm not using that I found the courage to plant a church in South Florida.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I was quite sure that once I was a pastor, there's no way, I'd be going doing that stuff. But as it turns out, church is stressful. So it wasn't too long after I planted the church that the problem reappeared. That was terrible, devastating. I was very, very careful, battled it. And then 3.5 years in, it got worse. It was a Christmas Eve. I was on my way into downtown Fort Lauderdale to get things set up for a candlelight service. Driving alone, my wife would come later with the kids. We had 3 kids by then. And I pulled over to offer a woman a ride out of the rain, unaware of what she was doing till she was in the car and propositioning me. I had been essentially sitting in a simulator for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went full automatic because I had seen some version of that scenario countless times.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, coming to after that, still having to lead a church service. I mean, that was awful,
Wow.
awful.
Wow.
But I thought, this is it. Bottom. I hear you got to hit bottom. I have hit bottom. This is it. I am done. But what I found was that once I'd crossed that line, I couldn't get back.
Wow.
So it wasn't too long after that first encounter that I was out looking, actively looking. A year and a half later, I quit the ministry in despair. Couldn't live with myself anymore. Terrified of getting caught. Just despised my own depravity and duplicity and hypocrisy. So I pled burnout, quit the ministry, went into business, where I had the great misfortune to succeed.
Wow. What'd you
So
do?
now I got money. I never had money before and no accountability. And what followed then was a very dark dozen years. But I never left church. We were in church the week after I left the ministry. I loved church. I loved who I could be at church.
Wow.
And it just killed me that I couldn't be that guy for very long outside the building. Well, 1998, we made the move from South Florida to Middle Tennessee, and it was shortly after that move that Allie caught me. First with porn, and then a few days later, she found a condom on the floor in the bathroom that I couldn't quite explain. And that's when she sat me down on the edge of our bed and she said the words that saved my life. She said, "I'm done."
Wow.
She said, "I still love you, but I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't respect you. And I don't think you can ever change."
Holy cow.
We'd been married for 20 years. Those were the words that gave me the gift of desperation, the motivation that I needed to finally go for help. I was fortunate enough to find help for the first time in a 12-step group for sex addicts. It met at a church in Nashville. It wasn't a Christian group, but it did meet in the basement of a church in the middle of the week while all the good people were gone. And strangely enough, it was there in that room. Even though there was never a sermon and we didn't do a Bible study, we never said the name of Jesus, we didn't sing, none of that stuff. That time in that room, I'd never in my life been in a room that safe.
Wow.
And my time there not only saved my life and saved my marriage, it actually saved me spiritually because it was there that I met God in a whole new way.
Wow.
He got a whole lot bigger. He got a whole lot closer. And he got a whole lot kinder. Well, fast forward 6 years. I mean, I didn't turn on a dime. I had learned to be an addict, and I had to learn, to live another way. And it took patience of the friends that I walked with. It took kindness. It took, uh, yeah.
Nate,
But
were
anyway, fast forward 6 years,
Nate, were you
finally, I got sexual sobriety. We could talk some more about how I got there, but, uh,
Nate, real quick,
and I lost.
were
Yeah,
you still were you still married, or
yeah,
did your wife leave you?
she stayed with me.
Oh my gosh.
She was now it was a very, very rough couple of years. I'm slept in a closet for a couple of years.
Wow.
We had an in-house separation. I was fortunate that Allie and I's Allie's not an unkind person. She
Mm,
was deeply hurt, but she's not a rager.
mm,
Um, we were civil. She was, we maintained distance. She was I was convinced right away that I was good. This was it. I was done. I was changed. I was a new guy, right? She was
yeah.
certainly skeptical.
Yeah. Yes.
She'd seen me turn over a lots of leaves in 20 years. She didn't think that I would stick to it. And you know what? I really didn't stick to it. It stuck to me.
Wow.
Um, and it was the kindness that stuck. It was the empathy. It was, uh, oh, and it was brothers. It was relational. So, and Allie watched from a distance, and actually during I've been raised in a home where everything was a sin. Uh, uh, the one thing we could do during those years was we could go down to the pub and have a couple of Guinnesses and play cards, and we'd get what we called the second beer love waves, and you know we couldn't have deep conversations, but Allie was watching, and she was watching to see whether there first of all, whether I was gonna stick to it, and then whether there was change.
Yeah.
She was looking for certain things. She was looking for one thing, um, a little bit of humility because
Yeah.
I had been such an arrogant guy as an active. She was looking for a reduction in my defensiveness.
Mm.
Um, and was I actually even able to connect emotionally?
Yeah, that's great. Those are great.
The great benefit of that, well, being in that room was that I was learning non-sexual intimacy. I was learning how to listen, I was learning how to share, and I was slowly reacquiring the language of the heart,
Wow.
starting to identify my feelings, that kind of stuff. And then learning how to share them, to talk with her about it. So Allie did not rush back into my arms. It was 5 years before we formally renewed our vows, before by that point, a pretty sizable crowd, and our kids were there, but,
Wow.
yeah,
5 years, that's incredible. What a journey.
yeah. But by that 5 year, so we were in a very good spot 5 years.
Yeah.
That's first 2 years were rough. I tell the new guys, strap in for a
Yeah.
couple of years,
Yeah, it's true.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. When you messed up, did you
yeah,
go back and tell her? What was your process for all that?
yeah. I did not these days, thank God, there are a lot of people who are skilled in helping us in disclosure,
Yeah.
and there are good practices that we now understand. I was warned against just coming home and dumping the truck and just T-boning her out of the blue because she had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was so good at gaslighting that woman, right?
Yeah.
She would have bet her life that I would never cheat on her. The advice I was given back then was, uh, tell her you'll always give her an honest answer to a direct question
Mm.
and leave it to her for the time. When she's ready for the answer, she'll ask the question.
Yeah. What do you advise men to do now?
Um, get with a good therapist skilled in disclosure. Um, and there's a process that's protective for both parties.
Yeah.
Uh, because even back then, I mean, this was 27 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that she was experiencing betrayal trauma
Yeah.
and that her behavior was classic PTSD behavior. We didn't even know that's what it was back then.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
back then, um, the idea was I was an addict and she was a co-addict. I was sick and she was sick in a different way. It was a way of kind of sliding the problem onto her. Uh, uh, so the only language we had back then was codependency language. And Allie was not about to take responsibility for my sin.
I bet. Yeah.
She was not going to own it. Now, I mean, both of us understand the trauma of my betrayal that was piled on top of a lot of trauma that she brought into our marriage from before she ever met me, right? And then, and my behavior had a genesis also in trauma in her. I remember sitting down with my first sponsor doing my first step, giving him this story of my just shame-filled story of my acting out. When I finished, he said, "Nate, do you know what your biggest problem is?" He said, "Your biggest problem is you think sex is your problem."
Yeah.
I didn't get it. He said, "Look, it's a problem. It's a big problem. You have to stop and you can't stop on your own. God's going to have to do it and he'll probably use us in the process. But if you think that just stopping that behavior is going to fix you and make you happy, you're crazy. In fact, if you do manage somehow by sheer force of will to stop that behavior and nothing else changes, well, you'll become more miserable than you are today, more miserable to be around, and you'll find something else." Because he said, sex is not your problem. Sex is your favorite solution. It's
Yes.
the medication that you've been using all these years to numb the pain caused by your deeper problems. He said, "Nate, you have much more healing and much more repenting to do than you know." So as time goes by, we'll be talking about woo. We didn't have trauma language back then,
Yeah.
but we did talk about woo. And he said, we'll be talking about pride and unbelief, fear and anger, resentment, self-pity, and self-centeredness. He said, "Nate, you're in for a full life makeover. Welcome to the great adventure." And he was right.
Yeah.
It is an adventure and it affects everything.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful today to be an addict. And my wife is grateful too, because recovery has been so good for both of us that if the only way to get there is through addiction, then the addiction's actually.
Wow. Man, uh, you got your life back.
Yeah. Oh, it's orders of magnitude, better than it ever was before.
I work with
Um,
a lot of married couples, and a lot. I've been doing it since, for 20 years now. I've been on staff at Bethel Church, and,
uh
a lot of my job is pastoral care and,
yeah,
counseling couples, pastoral counseling, and whenever a couple comes in and they're in a really, really hard spot, maybe there's infidelity,
yeah,
maybe they've broken trust in different ways, maybe through a different sort of addiction or whatever. I always tell them the same thing. This is gonna be this is gonna be the best thing in your life. You're gonna look
yeah,
back, if you work on it and you both take ownership, you're gonna get the marriage that you should have had in the very beginning.
yeah,
You're not just we're not just gonna repair this marriage, that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna go and we're gonna create a whole brand new marriage that you should have had in the very beginning.
yeah,
And I really do think that that's the opportunity, right, that people have when they, whatever, hit rock bottom and is
yeah,
decide, "I can't live like this anymore. I have to
yeah,
make massive changes." And it feels like such a hopeless despair place when you're down there, but it's this massive gift of God actually going, "Listen, man, you were born for greatness. You've got all this trash. A lot of it you didn't even." I tell guys this all the time. It may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. You're not the one that
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
you didn't decide to grow up one of 10 kids. You didn't decide to grow up in a home where they didn't, nurture and cherish and care, for you. You didn't get to decide that. But
yeah,
now it's your responsibility to decide, what am I going to do with my life? It takes a hell of a lot of courage to show up and to really own that story, and to go on that journey of wholeness, health, reconciliation, ownership. It's a wild
And
bunch.
it really, you're so right. And it really takes a nurturing, redemptive community to do it, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
When I showed up at that first meeting, I had no intention of joining a group.
Wow.
You know, I was gonna do recovery by independent study, you know? Uh, I'm gonna audit the class. I'm a fairly good student.
Yeah,
I'm gonna master the material and then pass the exam and go on and forget that this sad chapter of my life ever happened. I was not looking for friends.
yeah,
I've been begging God for a private solution to my private problem, and I couldn't understand why he couldn't give it to me.
yes.
I now understand Christianity is a team sport, not an individual, right?
That's a great line.
We're all colossal failures as solo disciples for a simple reason. Jesus doesn't have any solo disciples, never did, never wanted any. He first said, "Follow me," to two guys, not just one, and quickly added 10 more to them. He came to reconcile us to God and to each other. He came to reconstitute the family of God. That's what it's about. It's all relational. And it wasn't until I became willing to actually, as willing to ask for help as I was to give help, as
Mm,
willing to take advice as I was to give advice. It wasn't until I made the decision just to join the human race, just become another bozo on the bus, get right sized, right?
yeah,
That's when recovery, I really started to find some traction. And I'm so grateful now. I wasn't looking for friends,
yeah,
and I was a lonely person. I
yeah,
was well known, but nobody knew me, right? And I didn't even know myself, but I was performing. I was dancing my feet off. I was a good performer. And I got a lot of applause and acclamation, but that never meant anything
mm,
because deep inside I knew they didn't
yeah,
was, and I deeply believed that they ever saw who I really am, they'd abandon.
yeah.
What I've discovered is that when I'm my real self, I become freaking magnetic. And my life is so rich now in relationships, and my wife feels like she's got a few dozen brothers, and she's not alone in this thing. She's not the only one with responsibility for help keeping me straight. She's got brothers-in-law, and I've got brothers. You know, it's really stabilized our relationship. Yes, she's my best friend, but she's no longer my only friend.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing. My wife, says often, "I never worry, when you hit a hard time, because I know that I'm not gonna be the one that's there that has to hold you accountable or has to solve this problem,"
Yeah.
and that's been the biggest gift, right? Like, the Bible talks about in Galatians 6, it talks about the difference between a burden and a load, and it talks about, that we should carry one another's burdens. And then it goes on to say, that each man should carry his own load. And I just love it
Ah,
so much, right? Because that burden, if you look up that word, it actually means something that's too heavy for you to carry on your own. We're never meant to
yeah,
carry,
yeah,
right? You're never meant to carry your childhood on your own. How the heck could you? Like, there's no place in this world that you'd be able to, on your own, unravel what happened to you,
yeah,
you were supposed to be given this inheritance of love and belonging, care and concern. You didn't get that, so you have to get it from somewhere. And so it's incredible because we have this opportunity, to carry one another's burdens. Like the Bible says, a brother is born for the day of adversity. Well, there's so many men that are in adversity, but they don't have a brother. So
yeah,
they're
yeah,
really stuck, right? I have these burdens, but I don't have anyone to help me. And then we abandon the responsibility, that load that we're supposed to have. We abandon it, and therefore it leaves us feeling completely lost in this world, right? Is I
yeah,
have all these burdens. I discard my responsibilities in life, and I'm stuck in this crazy place. But like you, when you go through this process of joining the human race and allowing yourself to be an imperfect human being that people know and love and cherish, and also hold accountable. Sorry again, guys, my voice is trash. Um, we now get to not have to run this race that you can't actually do on your own. I know there's so many guys that are watching
Mhm.
this that are like, "Nah, Jay, you just don't know." But you can't actually run this race on your own and do it the way that God's called you to.
Yeah, yeah, I think that, we have an ancient enemy bent on our destruction, and, his main strategy, I think, is to try to keep us locked into an endless game of one-on-one.
Yeah, that's great.
Because he's the master of that game. He's only lost it once,
Yes,
this epic 40-day battle after Jesus was baptized, right? Uh, so he'd love to keep us in that game. He knows every move. He's 2 steps ahead of us,
it's true.
okay? But the gates of hell cannot prevail against the church, brother.
It's true.
When I got somebody to pass the ball to, um, yeah, the game changes.
It really does. Nate, for you, there's a couple questions that I want to ask you. Just,
Yeah,
I know that there are men listening to us today, for sure, that are in the middle of an addiction. And
yeah,
there's two categories of that. One is I've never told anybody.
yeah,
I'm trying to do what Nate Larkin 1.0 did. I'm trying to find that silver bullet solution that I can do on my own to get out of this.
right.
What's your commentary to that guy? What's the first step
Yeah,
that he needs to
yeah,
take?
yeah, that is an absolute dead end road. It doesn't matter how strong you are. At some point, I did irrational things for non-rational reasons, trying to solve the problem by rational means.
Wow,
At
yeah,
some point, you're gonna get too tired or too angry or too afraid. Something's gonna tip you over if you're all alone. Bible makes a pretty good point.
yeah,
One guy alone, not a good situation.
yeah,
He's gonna wind up in the ditch and nobody to pull him out. Um, yeah, so the sooner we give up, and for most of that can be driven, the impulse to do it alone can be driven by pride on
yeah,
one hand or by shame on the other.
yeah, it's true.
They're almost two sides of the same coin. Yes, I didn't want anybody to see how messed up I truly am. And so there was a lot of pride there. But also, I was convinced that if they ever saw how messed up I really am, they would run,
Yeah,
that they would abandon me. Uh, and the pride is irrational. God is God, and I am not. And shame for the Christian is unnecessary. Jesus just died not just for our guilt, but for our shame, for the
yeah,
joy that was set before him. He endured the cross, despising the shame, and made it possible for me now always to boldly approach the throne of grace and uh, to take my place within the family of God.
mhm,
I trust always in his righteousness, not in my own. So,
it's beautiful.
how I'm my level of performance today, right now, thank God, is irrelevant because Jesus performed perfectly for me.
That's beautiful.
Uh, but the quality of my life depends very much on how willing I am to to forsake the charade, give up the performance, and actually step into real life as the person who I really am.
Yeah, that's incredible. Nate, the other guy that is here is the man he's been on the journey for a while, and
Yeah,
he's working through it, but it's
yeah,
freaking tough. It's hard.
yeah,
There's lots of ups and downs inside of this journey. What's your message to him?
yeah. I would say that is the journey. It has not been a steady upward trajectory for me.
Mhm.
Now, I told you a little while ago that early in recovery, Allie and I would go to the pub so that we could talk. And that was a harmless thing for me to do back then. But we had some tough times after that. I mean, we were very, very close, but Allie then had breast cancer. She had a heart attack.
Gosh, wow.
I had some business reversals. Stuff got tough. And I started leaning on alcohol
Wow.
far too much. Now, I made the mistake for a while of trying to I don't I still hadn't learned that you don't overcome an addiction by yourself. So I tried secretly to stop drinking,
Yeah.
and, and the harder I try, uh, yeah, so there are ups and downs. I'm convinced that relapse is a natural part.
Wow, yes.
Yeah. So the voice of the accuser will come in the moment that we have a setback and speak all kind of condemnation and discouragement to try to get us to give up. Um, a relapse is simply a reminder. It's a signal. It says something we're doing isn't right.
Yeah,
There is an adjustment that has to be made.
yeah,
It's a wake up call, is what it is.
yeah. Man, I really, none of us like to go, "Hey, relapse is a part of the process," uh, because
No, we're afraid we can't preach grace. Come on, don't do that.
well, yeah, and it feels like we're empowering people to make a
Yeah,
big mistake, which is not what we're doing. I think the
no,
the other part of this is to to assume that someone's going to completely transform their life and never twist an ankle, never,
right,
trip and fall. It's not realistic. And
right.
one person said to me at one point, feedback is the mother of learning. And when you allow yourself to get real feedback, real time
Yeah,
feedback, okay, I tripped and I fell. One, you get to take ownership of that and you get to come back into the
yeah,
grace and the mercy and the accountability of
yeah,
God and go, what happened? How did I get here? What do I need to
yeah,
do to 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 actually not just prevent this from happening, but to live a life according to how God Christ has called me to live? If you allow the process to take shape in you, then a mistake doesn't become permission to it's like, where the Bible's talking about, like, I don't sin because there's grace. I don't
yeah,
go on sinning because I know that I can and God will forgive me.
yeah,
When I do mess up, I get back up and I use it as feedback in my life, and I take a really
yes,
close look at and in a lot of ways, it's sign of growth because, when I used to mess up, it drives me deeper into my spiral, deeper into my
right,
cycle. It's another affirmation of who I really am and what I'm really not. But when you're growing and you're maturing, you know that, even in a healthy way, when you start a business, you're not just gonna succeed to the top. There's a necessary, failure of concept. I get feedback.
right.
This is John Maxwell's loop. I get feedback
Sure, absolutely, yeah,
and then I make adjustments and I continue to grow to the top. And I really do. I think to me, for the guy that is in the middle of the process, if you're not great at look at constantly uh praising where you're at in a healthy way, giving yourself credit for what you are doing,
mhm,
noting the small wins, then all you're ever really looking for is this massive win. I'll only be happy with myself when
yeah,
I'm X, Y, or Z. I'll only be and the problem is you just can't live like that. It's
yeah,
these small, little, tiny, teeny wins. It's the 1%
mhm,
daily over a long period of time that gets you where Nate's at or gets you where I'm at. I had addiction to porn at 14, addiction to masturbation at 10 years old. And it was
yeah,
the small, teeny, tiny wins that eventually got me to the place where, okay, I no longer need this. Uh, but then I turned fly fishing into a massive addiction in my life.
yeah,
I did. And it's
yeah,
hurting my marriage. I'm giving up the thing that I don't really want for the thing that I do really want.
yeah, yeah,
I'm just trading one addiction for another. I'd rather have fly fishing than masturbation and porn, but I still have
yeah,
to own up to the fact that this is hurting my wife. Okay. I still have to go through this process of understanding why am I using and where do I
yeah,
really want to go? What do I really want to be? And
exactly.
Nate, you're such an inspiration, man. I love when men weaponize their stories. I talk about it a lot in BraveCo. It's really the ultimate challenge is to weaponize our story, to take the thing that once held us down and to use it as a testimony to get another person out of hell, to get them back into strength and back to where God's called them to be. And you are that, my man. You are a sharp, courageous pioneer that is rescuing many marriages, many men's lives. And Nate, how can men get more in touch with you? Yeah, how if guys are looking for a really safe place to go,
Yeah, yeah.
catch.
Uh, Samson Society does virtual meetings now, which are
Okay.
if a guy's in counseling or in therapy, whatever. This is great support between sessions. Multiple meetings every day, all of them hosted by volunteers. It's free.
Wow.
Meetings already in 8 languages.
Wow.
Uh, just go to samsonsociety.com. Now, you can't get into a virtual Samson meeting until you've done a newcomer meeting, but there's at least one newcomer meeting every day. Uh, Go in, register for a newcomer meeting, and then m meet some brothers, make some friends,
Yeah.
uh, get some men around you.
Amazing.
That's what Samson does. We're not therapists, and we don't do curriculum. The one thing Samson does is connection.
Amazing. Well, Nate, again, I'm just so thankful for you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for going on this courageous journey. Please thank your wife for also going on the
I will.
journey with you. And I just pray that God will continue to bless you financially, that He'd bless the Samson Society, and that these would be the most incredible years of your life of transforming men and families and marriages and futures. The work that you're doing is the most important work on the planet, is getting fathers back in the fight with their families. So thank you, Nate, so much.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate you. BraveCo men, if you're struggling, you don't have to do it alone. We are all struggling in some area of our life, and the idea that somehow there's a man walking on this planet that's got it figured out, and you should also have it figured out like him. You just don't. It doesn't exist. I've been around some of the greatest men on the planet, and I can tell you, save your time, save your effort, save your energy. We don't have it figured out. We are men who are deeply reliant upon God and one another. It's how we're built and born to live. So if you're in the middle of this journey right now and you're fighting, that's incredible. Let another man stand beside you and fight with you, right? Multiply your effort, get his wisdom, get his strength, get his encouragement, get his hope, and allow yourself to get out of this pit once and for all by starting the journey with somebody else. And you can go to the Samson Society. That's an incredible place. But also go to a therapist. You can even message us. We have some really, really great sexual addiction therapists who are licensed. It's what they do. I've seen so many men get completely free, just like Nate, from this and transform their lives. So, guys, please send this podcast to somebody that you love, and stay brave out there. We'll see you next week. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.